Yeah, all right. So some of you are subscribers to both my channels, both Papastache 102, this one, and Papastache Pop. I put a video describing the same kind of thing, but a little bit more basic on the other one. So if you guys are kind of more beginning into soloing, check out that lesson as well. I'm gonna put up videos, both channels, but I'm gonna do a little more advanced thinking here, a little more basic on the Papastache Pop. So check out that one. Also download the jam track that we're talking about. Right below here, you get 2 free ones. I'm going to do lessons on both songs, 2-3 lessons a piece, lots of different riff ideas, how I approach, when I solo, things to think about if you're a beginner, kind of basic ways that don't get too advanced in theory to think about when we're first starting out and to kind of hammer into our brain. And then as we progress along, we can start adding more theory and all that stuff again. So again, click the link below, 2 free jam tracks. That's what these lessons are about. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's zoom in for a closer look. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna find out where the chords are on our little jam track here. So we got, right? Now just find that C sharp minor chord again. It would be down here if we wanted to play it in a different spot. Now, what I do is I find out where the chords are in relation to the pentatonic scale position that I'm learning. So I highly recommend, if you don't already know them, learn all 5 positions of the pentatonic scale, and you'll see why as we apply what we're doing over this lesson. So I think of octaves, right, where the notes are of the chord and where those octaves are. So if we got here, that's our root note. You can also look for the 5th. Right, so think about those notes as well as how you would bend into them. So that 1, the first one we started with, B bending into C sharp, or our root note, is right there. So that's out of that first position. So we can do bending runs that way. Now there's also an E note in there. So some of those you don't even have to bend, right? You can use those notes that we would typically bend and just land on them as kind of, home base. I like this note, even though it's not directly in the chord per se, but it's a nice kind of in between. It's like a pseudo resolved note, right? It sounds good, and then what I'll do is I'll come back to home base from there, but it's a nice note to land on. So what I'm gonna do is A, chords, find out where the chords are in the neck in relation to the pentatonic shapes. B, think about the notes in the chords and where their octaves are. And then C, if I learn one riff in one octave, can I do that same riff in those other octaves and have them work? So watch this. Now I'm going to take that same riff in 3 octaves and apply it over our chord progression. And here's what we're going to get. Back up to the beginning here. Right, so same riff, 3 octaves, kind of sounded different, like I was doing something different each time. So think about the octaves. Now there's also, I can put in passing tones to that riff and do the exact same thing. Now a passing tone is basically just like filling in the dots in between the scale. So we got, that one's a little outside of the scale, but it still sounds nice. I'm also going to go right outside that and hit, but that'll be more of a passing tone in position 2, you'll see. Right, so that's position 2 of the pentatonic. Hendrix, Stevie Ray Vaughan, a lot of these guys really heavily play out of position 2 and position 1. So get those 2 down for sure, because those are like where a lot of what you hear and associate with awesome blues players, they kind of live in that zone. So what we're going to do is position 2. we can fill in some of those gaps. And then walk down to position 1 with passing tones. Now remember, if you learn it right here, right, learn that in the octave. Or since we went, right, so they happen all over the neck. Now watch what happens when we put in that passing tone with the same riff that we did in the beginning. Let me go back to the beginning here. Here we go. Right? So automatically it sounds like we've done a lot, but we've repeated 2 riffs in 3 different spots all over the neck. Now we can do that same riff and walk into it down here and have it sound a little bit better. I like hanging out a lot of times in that bassier part of when you're playing slow blues. It just sounds pretty potent, right? Pretty powerful. So let's go to that lower spot where this other C sharp minor chord is and find out what we got going on there. Now, if you notice, I did the same riffs, but in a different spot. Now it sounds a little bit more ZZ Top, a little bit more aggressive, a little more growl to it, right? Because we're doing it on the lower register of the neck. Now we can chain all of those together, right, and work our way up the neck and chain the scales together with a couple of the other positions and get back to, you know, up here. Start here, end up here, playing the same 2 styles. Okay, now let's start incorporating some bending runs. Okay, so position 1, awesome bends. Position 2, awesome bends as well. Position 3, great for that super, you know, big bend, the 1.5 bend. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back and forth with these 2 strings, the B and the E. And I'm going to go E to B and then bend on B, E to B, bend on E, E to B, bend on B, and then back to E. So we're going to go... Right? So I just went 9, 9, 12, bend up a whole step on B, and then I'm going to go do the same thing on E. Do the same thing on B again, and then go right to accent that note, right, out of our chord progression. Now you're starting to sound a little bit more modal. It's kind of from the C minor. Part of the scale, right? So if you want to get a... Right, we can use C sharp minor or C sharp minor pentatonic. I prefer to kind of play out of pentatonic and accentuate certain tones or kind of just hint at C sharp minor with 1 note. And in this case, I'm going to use that note right out of our chord. All right, so here we go. So now what I did was I did those bends, which I just showed you. I also bent up that note, which we did out of our... Right, I started incorporating that riff in with the bending runs that we just did. Now I also did... Right, and I'm just bending up 11, a whole step, and then going B string 9 to 12. And then went back into our bend that I did earlier where I'm bending up the G string 9th fret. So let's do a couple more bending ideas. So I actually throw in another one of those mistakes just for good measure. But anyways, now I'm starting to bend into the 1.5 step range to target some of the notes out of the chord again. And what I'm going to do is go position 2, and I'm going to go on the B string, this guy right here, which we're bending up to. So that would be our E note again, right? We're doing the octaves. Remember the E's down here too. But we're just doing it in a higher register, and we're bending up farther to get to it. We could just as easily go, but it sounds cool to go like you're really going for it. Now I also took the note right above it in position 2. So if we went, right? It's always that transition note to position 2. But I bent that up 1.5 steps. So that would be here. And it would go to right here, which would be the B note. And is there a B note in our first chord? Well, yeah, it's right here. So we can go. And then I did one of those passing tone notes. I went. Right, which is that 12th fret we've used already, but I hit it from a different angle. And then came back and resolved. So, here we go. So I'd hit some of the same big bends all over the place. And then what I did was I walked up from position 3 and 4, and then I went all the way back up till I got in position 1 again. And all I did was follow the pentatonic shapes. That's position 4, so 5, 7. And then I slid up and I went 7 to 9. 7 to 9 on the E. And then went into our bends. Right, so I'm just taking very simple ideas, 3 ideas, and now I'm starting to get all these different riffs, and all I'm doing is chaining 3 different ideas, a couple bending ideas together. So really, let's say 6 ideas. Playing them all over the neck and just stringing them together in 1 or 2 different notes to get to the octaves in each different position on the neck. So I'm playing the same notes over and over again, playing to a beat, or a track, trying to land on those target notes. And then that's basically where we're going. We're landing on the target notes and using a trick of the octaves and finding the riffs all over the neck and the chords all over the neck. And now it's starting to come together to where it's like, okay, we have the chord progression, we're going to hit the notes out of the chord, we're going to play the same riff over and over in different octaves, and then we're going to come at the same riffs, but from a different spot. So instead of going here, to slide in. Right, we're sliding in a different way. It's lower, we're using different notes, but we're coming in. We're bringing 2 and 3 patterns together. We're throwing some of those big bends in there. And then we're throwing in passing tones, and now it's starting to all come together. So I'm going to do much more of this in another lesson. We're going to do one more lesson on this song, and then we're going to do another 2 or 3 on the other one, because that other track is where we're going to combine major and minor pentatonic, and you get just a ton of different riff ideas. Also, do that one. Awesome, I love that riff. So I'm going right out of position 1, and I'm just hitting the 13th fret. All right, so let's see if we jam this in here before we run out of time. Do that. All right, so try those 3 ideas.